Y'all know my whole deal. I come in here once a month and I talk about the weirdest thing I possibly can. I think I've outdone myself this time because today we're going to be talking about bratwurst, a staple of tailgating. Y'all ever cook bratwurst? Throw a couple brats on the grill, or usually they come in like these long links. You know what I'm talking about, the link sausage. Okay, so that's what that is. Here's a question for y'all: what could bratwurst possibly have to do with learning? Take a wild guess.
I guess the chain link. I don't know.
Yeah. Give you something to eat while you're studying. But it has to do with your brain, and in particular, the cells in your brain. Y'all know what a cell looks like, right? Kind of like this. Most of them look like this. They're round, you got the nucleus in the middle and all that kind of thing. There's 37 trillion of these things in your body. And get this, each individual one is an individual organism, okay? You are literally a community, population 37 trillion. And most of them look like this. Yeah, you're a community of cells. They each do individual little things. They have almost like a mind of their own, okay? Most of them look like this. The cells in your brain don't, okay? And the rest of your nervous system don't. They look completely different. They look like this. They look like wires. You got the cell body here that has the nucleus and all that stuff in it. But then you got this little wire that runs out so they can reach out to other cells with this one right here, okay? And these cells talk to one another, if you will, all right? But they look like this. There's 100 billion of these things in your brain, okay? And there's endless connections between them because there's so many. 100 billion is a lot. And they are, in fact, like wires. And they are shaped like this because they form wiring in your brain. Your brain literally, I've talked about this before, like metaphorically, figuratively. It's literally, you have wiring in your brain. Okay? This is how it works. It's just like wiring. I've talked about this before. It's just like the wiring in a house. Y'all ever done any wiring work or electrical work? So you know kind of what I'm talking about. A house has wiring in it, right? I've said before, like that light switch over there, it has a wire that runs from there to the light, so it sends an electrical signal from there to there, right? And that's why the room lights up. And those wires carry electricity. The wiring in your brain also carries electricity. That's literal electricity going through your brain. This wiring carries electricity and information from one part of the brain to another, okay? And these cells are connected. These cells I was talking about a little bit ago, this one will light up, fire, they call it, become electric, I guess, light up. And then it will pass down through this little wire here. It'll squirt a little bit of chemical to this next one, and it given it information, and then it'll light up. And then on down the line in a long chain, all right? And there are endless combinations like this. It looks something like this in the brain where it just forms these what are called pathways, neural pathways. A neuron is a cell in your brain, okay? And it just forms this wiring. And it carries electricity and information from one part of your brain to another. It forms a circuit. Y'all know what an electrical circuit is, right? A house, a building has an eloelectrical circuit in it. And your brain has something very similar. It has circuits, just like circuits in a house. They're not as neat as this, okay? They look a little bit more like what I showed you just a minute ago. Again, your brain, that's half of your brain's mass is those cells, okay? And it's called gray matter. And there's 100 billion of them, like I mentioned. They're just these endless combinations. And so it's not literal wires like the wire in that wall over there. It's more just a pathway through different parts of your brain. It's just carrying information from one part of your brain to another. You have these circuits all over the place. Everything your brain does has a circuit to it, okay? Everything you do, everything you say, everything you think, and everything you feel, every emotion you have, it has a circuit that goes along with it. If I decide to raise my left hand, it's not hard to do because it's something I've done enough that it's a very quick circuit. But when I decide I'm going to raise my hand, There's a circuit in my brain, somewhere in my brain, during the motor cortex. I can't point to it, but it's up there somewhere, I know. And it carries a little information from one part to the other. It sends that information down my spinal cord to the nerves in my arm, and it activates the muscles, and the arm raises. Does that make sense? So it's a circuit. And if I decide I'm going to think about what I'm going to have for lunch and decide, or I think I feel sad because I'm hungry and I have to be here, okay? Each one of those things has a circuit to it, usually more than one circuit. All right. But this is how your brain works. It's a circuit. And the more that you fire a circuit, okay, you practice doing this long enough, you do it without thinking, right? The more you fire a circuit, the stronger it gets. Everybody who in here brushes their teeth every day? I hope that it's not something you have to think about, is it? You've done it enough that that circuit fires very, very quickly. And every motion, the tiny circles and all that kind of thing. Does anybody have an electric toothbrush? That's like polishing your teeth. You got to get an electric toothbrush because this right here is a lot of work. Okay, but every one of these little motions here, there's a circuit that goes along with it. And if you do it enough, you don't have to think about it. When you were learning how to brush your teeth, it was kind of clumsy, right? But now it's just second nature. It's become what they call automatized, made automatic. Okay, that's because once you fire that circuit enough, it's going to get stronger. It gets insulation around it. That's how it gets stronger. Those wires in the wall over there. What's that thing that stands up? Wall. Those wires in that wall over there, they have insulation, right? So here's a question. What does that insulation do? What's the purpose of having that rubber coating around it?
To protect it from touching the other wire.
Yeah, because if it touches other wires, what's going to happen?
It's gonna spark.
Yeah, you're going to have a short circuit, right? That's what, do y'all happen to know anybody who suffers from epileptic seizures or has suffered from, y'all know what epilepsy is, and y'all know what seizures are, right?
My stepmom has seizures.
Is that right? Okay. This is a little simplistic, but it's roughly a short circuit in your brain. That's electricity traveling, right? Okay. And it doesn't have that circuit that we're talking about doesn't have the insulation that it needs. And just like these electrical wires, it keeps them from touching, but it also makes them more efficient because it keeps the electricity, like this one right here is naked. The electricity is going to seep out. A guy in my Boonville class told me what that's called like yesterday. I can't remember. I haven't done electrical work. But, it'll kind of seep out. But if it's wrapped, all that electrical signal is going to get where it's supposed to go. Y'all see what I'm talking about? And so it's efficient. Now your brain will coat, just like this, that wiring that I was talking about. But the coating doesn't look like that. It looks, y'all are going to be shocked, so get ready. It looks, heaven help me, like bratwurst. That's link sausage I was talking about. This is that cell right here I was talking about. It wraps it in sections. It looks like that link sausage.
Like, one of them cookies.
Okay. What it is, when you fire these circuits, when you decide I'm going to raise my hand or practice something and fire that circuit, when that circuit is fired and each one of these little neurons has a little cell called an oligodendrocyte. You do not have to remember that, okay? That little cell will wrap this thing in these sheets. This is something called myelin. You don't have to remember that either. Myelin is not rubber like we wrap those wires with in the wall. It's a thick fat. It's a phospholipid. I'm not going to get into what that is because I don't really know. But it's a dense fat, all right? And that's what it gets wrapped with, and it looks kind of like this if you string them out. And it works just like this. It wraps that wiring in your brain. Everybody with me so far? Y'all are doing great staying with a fairly complicated neuroscience lecture. I don't even know what I'm talking about. It's interesting, isn't it? Because this is your brain. And it insulates those circuits. And what happens when you insulate those circuits, it looks like sausage links. The myelin, it insulates the circuits. It makes those connections a whole lot faster. Again, you don't have to think about brushing your teeth because that circuit is so well worn. It's so wrapped with that insulation. If you're an expert at something, I consider myself an expert at brushing my teeth. I ain't expert at nothing. I'm brushing my teeth, okay? That circuit, you have up to 50 layers of that myelin insulating that circuit. That's a lot of insulation, okay? It makes that circuit, the electricity and the information that travels around it, it makes that circuit up to 3,000 times faster. It makes the circuit itself about 100 times faster, and it makes the time delay between one action and another even faster than that. About 3,000 times altogether. 30 times 100, that's what it is. So it's like installing broadband. Y'all know how broadband works. And none of y'all is old enough to remember dial-up. Okay? Mr. Sean does, Miss Beth does. Here's what would happen back in the 90s. You'd sit down at your computer, you would plug it into the wall, because we still had wall jacks, because we didn't have wireless yet. And you would open up AOL, and it would go. I'm not making this up. This is what it would do. It was like the phone line. It was the phone line, all right? And it would slowly come on. And God help you if you had to download a picture. Because a picture, I'm not making this up, y'all. Like if I were going to download this picture on my Windows 96 on a computer, it would download it a line at a time. Like unveiling it, basically. I'm not making this up. But when you practice something and that wiring in your brain gets wrapped, it's like installing broadband. It's like 4G, okay? It's instantaneous. That's how you get to be an expert at something.
I hate you.
Now, so this works the same way for brushing your teeth as it does for learning social studies, learning those reading skills, learning math skills, learning writing skills, learning whatever it is that you need to learn, okay? The more that you practice it, the more those circuits are going to get wrapped. Do you know the one thing that makes that wrapping happen more than anything else, faster than anything else? Who wants to take a guess? Because it would be a good thing to wrap them quickly, right?
To learn something.
Yeah, but what do you need to do specifically? I will tell you. You ain't going to like it, but I'll tell you. You have to fail. You have to fail.
That's what I'm
Here, and I'm not talking about failing the test. I'm talking about trying something and not be able to do it. You have to commit errors, okay? You have to sincerely try. Learning is trial and error. You have to try and you have to commit errors, okay? You have to actually force errors. That gives your brain something called an error signal. Y'all know what an error signal is. It's just a signal that this ain't working. We got to try something different. And so that starts to change your brain in the ways that you need to for you to learn something, okay? You have to try things that are harder than what you're able to do right now. You're practicing social studies. It's not real easy for you right now. You're trying something that's harder than what you're able to do right now, right? You have to reach a little further than your grasp, like this dude trying to grab that mountain. I don't think he's going to get it. You have to reach a little bit beyond what you're able to do. You have to try more than you're able to do right now. You have to force those errors, and you have to repeat. If you're trying to learn to play, does anybody play the guitar by any chance? Okay, I do too. And so if you're trying to learn to run on the guitar, you're going to start out doing it slowly, right? You're just going to work that
You might
scale.
make mistakes.
Yeah, but you have to make mistakes. That's it. If you could just sit down and do it, there'd be no practice, right? You have to sit down and you have to try a run or a chord switch or something that you're not able to do right now, and you have to keep going, and every time you mess up, you just keep doing it because you're forcing errors, and you have to know that you're wrapping that circuit. There's a circuit for playing Wildwood Flower or whatever you're playing. People probably don't play Wildwood Flower on a flat top box anymore, but if you were trying to learn whatever song, there's a circuit for it, okay? And the more you mess up, but you're sincerely trying, the more you're going to wrap that circuit and make yourself able to do it. Same for playing the guitar or the piano or learning social studies, writing an essay, whatever it is. You're just strengthening those circuits.
Football too.
So let's say that football, anything. So let's say that you're trying to learn. Let's say you're trying to work a complicated science problem and you don't know how to do it and it's hard for you. You're trying to do something you're not able to do, like this lady right here trying to figure out how the computer works. So you're trying to learn this science and you're not able to do it, okay? Like we were reading that question a little bit ago. It's a little hard to figure out. That doesn't mean you don't have the science gene or that you're not a science person or you're not cut out for it. What it means is that you're reaching a little beyond your grasp, okay? I think you said you had trouble with essays and math you and I talked about, I think. So that doesn't mean that you're not cut out for that stuff. It means that you're wrapping those circuits. So what you have to remember is that when you are struggling in here, doing foretest.com, whatever it may be, when you're struggling, all that means is that's when your brain is building the sausage up in there, okay? That's when it's wrapping those circuits. And therefore, that's when you're installing the broadband and making it faster. So just the main thing I want y'all to remember is this, that struggle is progress, okay? Struggle feels like an impediment to progress, right? If you're trying to do it and I'm not getting it, well, I'm just, that's getting in my way. Struggle is not a roadblock to progress. Struggle is the road to progress. And that leads me to the final thing I'm going to say about all this, which is this. Notice your progress. Notice your progress. When you make any, it's what you and I were talking about a minute ago. When you make any kind of progress whatsoever, we were reading that question and we figured out together what a comparison is and how that comparison, how it applies to what they were asking us to do, right? We were looking for the one answer that all was measured for all of those countries, right? That's a little bit of progress, isn't it? When you figure out how to use a word you weren't able to use before, when you're writing an essay, when you figure out what X means in a certain algebra problem, when you figure out anything, just a little bit. Anytime you make any progress, and look, even if you're not really making progress, if you're struggling at it, but you're staying at it, that's progress. Anytime you make progress, be sure and notice it. Now, don't get cocky about it. But no, I didn't mean to look at you specifically. None of you get cocky about it, okay? But notice when you're making any progress, because I've talked about this before. In order for those changes to take place and that wrapping and all that stuff to happen, your brain has to release adrenaline, which I've talked about earlier today, okay? And adrenaline makes you agitated, so that's why it's frustrating when you're trying to, say, write an essay, do a math problem, whatever, and you're not able to do it. It feels frustrating because you got all that adrenaline running. When you start to notice progress, you will start to see yourself get a little bit closer. Like, this is where I need to be to understand this subject. Way over here is where I am right now. I've been there many times, okay? When you start to see that you're making a little bit of progress, that adrenaline that I was talking about that you have to release gets replaced mostly with something called dopamine. And dopamine feels far better than adrenaline does. And that's when you start to enjoy learning, when you start making progress. Does this make sense to everybody? Well, very good. That's all I've got. What questions do y'all have about any of this